morning. Today is the completion of the Mandarava teachings. So be welcome, have a seat, relax. Chuku kunduzong pogompo yi Dorji sempa garab dorji dang Shiri singi bardu shin labde Dedam abzam tatatusmchi Zogchen jupe lamala solwa dib Ergin pema junela solwa dib Dorje chang shitilo narodang Marpa mila gompo tsatsapa Na pupadang palden drupa suk Kargyu lama namla solwa dib Ochen lama namla solwa dib Druchen lama namla solwa dib Shakchen lama namla solwa dib Yung trung dang yendu lama namla solwa dib Pakon du zhong dung yerme pa Gun garab dorji jin trag pa Jeti dang ni sume pai Pa lamanam che tenter chong I promised you a prayer, a doing to invoke Mandarava. Last week I gave you one, which is the one which is in the back of this book, although I gave it to you in Tibetan, the Lung. This week I will give you one which is a prayer to the wisdom Dakinis, to all the manifestations, not just her manifestation as Mandarava, but every single manifestation of wisdom Dakini energy that arises, has arisen, will have arisen, will be arising, is arising at all times throughout the three realms, in all spaces throughout the four times. Chuing dorji tunmoy shing. Within the wisdom space of the Vajra Queen, the Dharma Dhatu, De Tongyu Trul Drawe Trinding Le. From the garlands of clouds of the bliss empty, magical net. Jin lam ngudrup trinle logargi. Your lightning dance of blessings, siddhas and activities. Pende charbeb kandror solwadeb. Shower us with goodness and happiness. to you, Dakinis, I pray. Tupe chengar gange lamotsu. As Ganga Devi, in the presence of the sage, Gyal kun sungi durje angchenma, and Sarasvati, Vajra, speech of all Buddhas, Guru gede sangak kadumo. Delighting your Guru, you compiled the secret mantras teachings. Yeshisu gyal shabla solwadeb. To you, Yeshi Sojal, I pray. She's the one who wrote down the stories of Mandarava. Sanje kunge trul trinle nurmetsu. Swift one, activity of all the Buddhas. This refers to Tara. Dulkedro kundrolwa pemotsen. Renowned heroine, liberator of the hard to tame. Mandarava. Si shedung kyob gyalwe kunyuma. Mother of all victors, umbrella over existence and peace. Jetsung pakma drolmar solwadeb. Noble Lady Tara, to you I pray. Nam tar sum zo hing yum kun zang mo. You are Samantabhadri, mother of space, perfection of the three doors of liberation, great mother ocean of Dharmakaya. Yeshe long ariki yom chenga. The five great mothers of the five wisdom expanses and the five families. Nesum gandro jimo trokmanak. And Mandarava's empress, the Dakini of the three abodes. Yang chik dorje pak mor solwa deb. Darsavari Vajravarahi, Dorje Pagmo, to you I pray. Chok to mingyur dechen Dorje Zuk. Your Vajra form of great bliss, utterly unchanging. Garge wansa game umgitso. Take the guise of Natasvara's consort, lady of pleasure. Orgendak geto morngudrupdak. Queen of cities, chief among Udiana's Dakinis. Sangwe shisha bla solwa deb. Lady Gyuya Jana, to you I pray. Mochig dume rolpa dakima. Dakini, single essence with mirrored displays. Don lam lenche keme shing. Ultimate co-emergent wisdom. Korde kunyab nyam yang dalawe chi. Vast, pervasive equality permeating all samsara and nirvana. Ngordru Dudral me pe solwa deb. never parting from this essence. To you I pray. Nge jung kyo shi lam ge gyu jang ne. By purifying our minds through the path of renunciation and weariness. De mo tsong pe chang chub cho padzo. Through faith, devotion, and diligence, may we perfect the awakened conduct. Third word of Garab Dorji Sopa. Ki parmindro zammo singlamgi. Especially through the profound direct path of ripening and liberation. Dzogchen. Zung juk de chen dorje drang tsen shok. We enjoy the Vajra citadel of unified great bliss. Chopa sunge negyu tar tsompe. Perfecting the three conducts, the immediate cause, Baraway sungi lungsem umarching. I bind the three blazes of prana mind in the central channel. Dua sungi dani lundrumne. And through the three great ways, may the two benefits be spontaneously accomplished. Ne sung kandro tsok dang kyal nyam shok. Thus I gain the same fortune of the as the Dakinis of the three places. Se we kuntu yeshi kandro me. In all my future lives, O wisdom Dakinis, Jesu zung te dorji te jogi. Take me under your care through the supreme Vajrayana. Sangzo do gur chopa lenke ki. The innate secret treasury that yields all to be desired. Yeshe tiglerni me chung chub sho. I awaken, merging indivisibly with the wisdom Bindu. To recite this is very powerful. May it be a cause of swift completion of the path. That can be put up.
Oh, okay.
There is also available for those of you who want one, tsatsas of Mandarava for your altar. These are made by Vicky and distributed by Karen. And I will put up in the chat where you can get it. If you'll hand me my iPad, Nyando. The email. If you email to them, your name and address requesting this, and I recommend a donation to cover the postage for sending one to someone else so that you may receive it as a gift and also have the benefit of giving it. Let's see. She said to send the email to Karen. Let's find Karen's. Karen Prestwood. Nyando, you can find the email here. It's Karen Prestwood's email.
Ah, okay.
We'll put that up.
And this is for Satsa's...
Of Mandarava. Very beautiful. Her standing holding a flower. She was a true Dakini of space and sky, as well as a very interesting woman in her life. When she was born in the kingdom of Sahor as Mandarava, and that kingdom is now where I live. It's known as Mandian these days, an ancient city, very lovely city. Nobody speaks much English there. Not a tourist place. But her home was there. The old palace, which is now a hotel, still has a few of the old stones, having been rebuilt any number of times since those days. Remember, this is 1000 BC. We're a good 1,000 years back. But some of the old stones are still there. The dungeon that she was imprisoned in is still there. You can see it. The cave that she practiced with Guru Rinpoche in, still there. The small lake in which she bathed, still there. The lake, which was formed when the attempt was to burn her and Guru Rinpoche at the stake by the king, or to burn Guru Rinpoche at the stake by the king, and she was imprisoned in a dungeon, still there. You can go to that place when travel is open again and see these things and see the remains of history. So remember these trees that went about here and there. This is the story of one of them that landed near to our time and place, in a place you can still get to, in a time that is still well remembered. When she was born, there were many signs, and everyone thought, oh, the king has had a son. But at the month-old time, when the baby is shown to others, it was seen that it was a girl. Many miraculous signs of her birth. In fact, this time even again, stillborn in the call, without pain to her mother. Later, when she was not very old, 6, 5, she used to like to go up on the roof of the palace and look out on the town. Still too young to go about on her own yet. And she saw a pig down by the river giving birth. And she saw the suffering of this. And she heard crying, wailing, screaming. And she saw that it was a woman giving birth in the town just near the palace. And seeing these things, she began to cry, for it looked terrible. And at that time, she decided that she wasn't gonna do that. She looked out and saw an old man suffering, unable to walk, bemoaning his pain. She looked out and she saw a corpse, dead. and seeing the suffering of samsara, she personally decided against it, that she would not walk that path. And this was the beginning of her interest in Dharma in that life, where she manifested her interest. She saw that she had taken birth in the form of aggregates, and that led only to suffering. And so she chose. And she studied and learned and practiced what was available to her in the palace. Later, as she became a preteen, she said to her parents, "The phenomena of samsara are deceptive. If I am alone, I shall be free to be happy or sad as it happens. Oh, my parents, look upon me with compassion and grant me your permission to leave." This upset her parents greatly. She's still sort of pre-adolescent, not even a teenager yet, and she wants to go off on her own. Of course, they didn't let her. However, they did to give her privacy and tutors, and so she continued to learn and study within the palace. And she studied Buddhist scriptures and poetics, logistics, a number of languages, chanting spiritual melodies, all the K-rim of the path. One day, she had studied herbology. That's among the sciences. One day she heard people debating in the town square just below the palace about the benefits and lack of benefits of a particular plant. And there was a man there who was saying how this plant had no benefit, and a woman came up and began to argue that it had great benefit. And she noticed that the woman knew more than the man. Of course, the man just poo-pooed the woman, doesn't have to listen to a woman. But this is where she began to notice issues against women. Later on, she again asked her parents, for many suitors came for her hand, and it looked like there might even be war over it. Finally, the king decided that he would let her choose. And so they went to Mandarava and said, well, who do you want to marry of all these princes who she'd had to meet and entertain in court functions? And she said, none of them. I'm not getting married. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. I want to go off alone and practice Dharma. Of course, they refused permission to the princess. So one night while all this was going on, she and her closest friend in the court snuck out of the palace in the night and off outside the city into the forest, where she took off all her jewelry and broke it with rocks and went off. And she took herself off and about a day's walk from the city and found a cave in a mountain and sat down in it and began to practice. Well, of course she was searched for, and of course they eventually found her and tried to get her to come home, and she just wouldn't. Not wanting to drag her through town in chains, which was about the only way they were going to get her back home. You know how stubborn teenagers can be? Have you ever had one? Unless you drag them around in a headlock, they aren't going where they don't want to go. So that was the situation. The king finally relented and said, okay, I will send a court, many young women to practice with you on the mountain. There's room for other caves. And in fact, when we build up and make dry caves on the mountain, we often find ancient artifacts, broken pottery, other things, left by those practitioners back then, since the good sites for caves are pretty obvious. Overhanging rocks. Understand, these are not the limestone caverns you're used to in America and sometimes in Europe. This is similar to Yosemite, a pile of glacier left boulders with dirt on them, with the tops sticking out. The mountains in that area were glacier created. So the mountain itself in Solpema is a great mountainous pile of rock and boulder, pushed up by the moving of continents in ancient times and brought by the snows. So what you have there as far as caves are big boulders that overhang each other, piled on each other. And so what you do is, when you want a cave, is you find a boulder with a nice overhang, you dig out under it, you make runnels so that the monsoon water will go somewhere else and not into your cave. You pile some rocks around the front to build up the front and keep the weather out, and then you sit in it. If you want to be pucka, you make a door and a window. I remember building my cave high up on the mountain, gathering rocks and piling them, and mixing mud with chopped grass and pine needles so that it wouldn't crack, and cow dung, and using this as mortar in the rocks, and sticks for a window frame, and old boards for a door. And finding an old wooden box that might have had tea or something in it, and setting it into the wall so I'd have a shelf to keep food and spices in. Took about a couple of weeks. Plastered it with mud, smoothed it out, smoothed the mud floor, and waited for monsoon to see where the water got in. Flattened out old tin cans, and you stick them where the rock is overhung, and then you'd get like some tar or some cement, and you make a drip thing so the drips land on the old tin cans and not on the wall you built. And then you thatch that with pine needles. And it's pretty dry. I mean, nothing's really dry in the monsoon. Everything grows blue fuzz, even in a proper house. But dry enough. I had the most wonderful mushrooms growing underneath my gum tree at one point, though. They were delicious. Mushroom season comes once a year where you get all the mushrooms you can want to eat, and then you don't see them for another year. That's true of most foods up there. Very seasonal. And it's covered with wildflowers and tall grasses. When the monsoon is over and the sun comes out. Yeah, you can tell I'm a little homesick. Sitting in this cottage in the East Bay. Unable to go home this year. India's closed for the moment. But the time will come again when you can go there. Anyway, with a retinue around her, she sat there. Oh, I miss telling you a story. When she was about 11, they had run out of meat in the kitchen, and everyone was busy with something else. So her mom sent her out to town to find a butcher and buy a bit of meat for her father, their Chetri class, which eats meat. And so she went out, but all the butchers were out of meat and so closed. It happens frequently. And finding no meat, she was upset, not wanting to disappoint her mother. On the way home, she found a fresh corpse. So, well, that's meat. So she cut a chunk from the thigh, wrapped it up in leaves, and brought it home to the cook, who proceeded to cook it for her father and serve it to her father, who ate it. Now, as it turns out, this meat was a bit of 7-time born Brahmin, born as a Brahmin, fully vegetarian for 7 lives. And the effect of such things, at least in my experience, is somewhat like steroids. Only more so. I only got a little bit. He actually had a full serving. There was still some around. Even 1,000 years later, it was dried when Rinpoche found it. Anyway, 7 times born Brahmin meat, which is hard to get, has an amazing effect. Her father first levitated up into the air and felt great bliss and joy and delight, and as if nothing could ever harm him. And then he thought, what the fuck? So he called his queen into the room, and then he went into a rage. It's like steroids. Everything is more intense, both up and down. So then he went into a rage, and he grabbed her by the hair and put a knife to his queen's throat. Says, where the fuck did that meat come from? Tell me now or I'll slit your throat. Quite out of character for him. He was a fairly peaceful man, usually. Oh, for a king. And so she said, oh, I sent Mandarava. There was no meat. And so he called her into the room and grabbed her by the pinky and threatened to break it off if she didn't tell him where the meat came from. So she told him about the corpse. That's when he realized that he'd had a bit of 7 times born Brahmin. So he sent ministers out. Drop what you're doing. Go get that corpse. And they went and got it and brought it back. And the meat was dried in strips and kept as blessings. For it's very, very powerful. It was a bit of that Rinpoche had once and shared about. It was dried so that it could be used as a treatment for disease, and especially autoimmune things, inflammation, and as a blessing to potentiate one's practice. The king's practice was making decrees. He was a king. It potentiated that. Anyway, I missed that story. So let me go back now after knowing that story. So she was like that. Just did things without necessarily a why. Or if she had a why, it was dharmic. Anyway, she was in the cave. There were other women who had been ordained as nuns scattered about the mountain. And the cave she was in is here on the side of the mountain overlooking a lake, a high lake that had been there already. It's a rain runoff lake. Well, maybe spring fed, but it does dry up in the dry season a bit. Very beautiful. Water sources further down the mountain. Well, she was practicing there. Guru Rinpoche flew by. In fact, you can see where he pushed off the mountain and it left a footprint. He had big feet. And he pushed off the mountain at one point and then landed by her cave. And she met him, and she took him inside, and he began teaching her. And yes, the other women around the mountain knew of it. No, you can't keep secrets on the mountain. But since he gave such wonderful teachings, it was not a point of worry. And he taught her consort practice and took her as his consort. Eventually, a cowherd wandered by that mountain looking for a lost sheep, or a shepherd. Shepherd, cowherd. Usually one has flocks of both together. And heard them inside the cave, the voice of a man talking. Ooh. Being a bit of a gossip, he talked about it, here and there, in his life. And rumors being rumors, they did what rumors do. They went everywhere. The princess up in the caves, the one who says she's a renunciate, she's got a man in there with her. Eventually it reached the king. Didn't like it. He sent someone to investigate who also heard the voice of a man and came back and told, there's a man in there with her. This rumor is a problem, even if it's true, but I want to know who saw it. So the king took a big bag of treasure, and he set it down in the main square in his hand, held it like this, and said, this bag of treasure to whoever saw it with their own eyes and heard it with their own ears. It's come to my attention that there is a rumor that the princess has a man in there with her. Whosoever saw it with their own eyes, heard it with their own ears, and started this rumor, come, and I'll give you this treasure. Well, eventually this reached the cowherd, who came before the king and said, Your Majesty, I was searching for a lost cow. See, now I don't remember if it was a cow or a sheep. I was searching for one of my lost cows, and I went on that mountain where your daughter is supposedly practicing austerities in retreat. And I saw a man with her. Older man, big guy, cute. And I heard a man's voice. I saw it with my own eyes. I heard it with my own ears. Therefore, that bag of treasure is also mine. And he picked it up and put it over his shoulders and walked away. Well, now the king is a bit enraged. He had a bad temper a bit. So he gathers together the army, and he went out there to the caves and found Mandarava with Guru Rinpoche. And finding them together, he had them arrested. He hauled Guru Rinpoche down to a meadow at the bottom of the hill, a grazing meadow, and built a big bonfire with lots of wood and trees chopped down, and chained Guru Rinpoche in the middle of it and lit it on fire, and went back to Mandi, hauling his daughter as a prisoner. And he sentenced her to 20 years without seeing the sky, and threw her into a pit full of thorns and closed the top. You could see the smoke from Mandi. A week later, you could still see the smoke from Mandi. And the king thought, that's not right. It should have burned out by now. So together with his ministers, he returned to where Guru Rinpoche had been burned. And there was no fire, but a big, beautiful lake filling most of the meadow. And in the center of the lake was Guru Rinpoche on a lotus, naked as the day he was born. And the king, amazed by this, stood dumbfounded. And Guru Rinpoche scolded him and warned him of the results of the karma he was creating. The king was mortified. A true sage, a true Buddha, I have harmed. I am doomed. And he tore his hair. And Guru Rinpoche came forth from the lake, walking on the water, and stood before the king, and the king took off his own clothes that he was wearing and gave them to Guru Rinpoche to put on. And throwing a rag upon himself, he brought Guru Rinpoche back to his capital, Mandi, pulling the cart himself in penance. Then he ordered his daughter brought out from the pit to him. But she wouldn't come. You now have a pissed off teenager who's very stubborn. She sent back the message, you, my father, who has done this, who has killed my consort, the great Guru, the great Buddha born in these times, the second coming of the Buddha, you who have done this, I have no need to obey. You have sentenced that I will remain here for 20 years, so I'll do that. And you can't stop me. Yeah. Remember, it's teenager. He sent the ministers. He went himself and begged her to come out. Nope. Finally, he sent her mother, who cried at her. That worked. She came out. At that point, she and Guru Rinpoche lived in Mandi for a time, where they turned the wheel of the Dharma. Guru Rinpoche continued to return there to Sahor, now known as Mandi, for 300 years turning the Dharma. Mandarava, who had escaped from that damn palace once already, had no investment in living in it. So she wandered around practicing austerities in the jungle during this time and visited him frequently. So many stories. After spending some time in Sahor, they went traveling together. Actually, Guru Rinpoche went first to Marathagar, told Mandarava she had to make it there on her own, and they'd do the practice of immortality. And so, being a very determined young woman, she's a little older now, she traveled far. Marathagar is up in Nepal. It's a long way to walk. And yet she did, eventually becoming lost in the wild mountains, among wild animals, and losing her way. In despair at that point, she called upon the Guru, and he came to her and reassured her, and they traveled on together. I'm skipping ahead. I have told you most of these stories of what took place in Zahar. You know, they dredged the lake about 10 years ago. The bottom, because it was clogging up a bit at the runout, the bottom was full of burned tree stumps and charcoal. I had a piece. Don't know where it's gotten off to now. I may have given it to someone. So when she was lost in the wild jungles and called upon him, he came. And she threw her arms around him and held him tight. And he said to her, "What has become of your fearless courage that you've had as long as I've known you? Now that you are confronted by such a malevolent and unruly land, this frightful environment is wonderful, for such as this catalyzes a practitioner's to practice to emerge. Adverse conditions are the true wealth of a practitioner. Such a supreme place of practice as this is the most exalted spot for accomplishing the innermost profound Dharma. To discover the illusory nature of the barren, frightened land is to discover the true nature of the Dharma. When things are going well, sunny days, nice weather, wealth, all that you need. It's easy to imagine that you are strong and fierce. But when faced with the terrors, alone in the wilderness, in bad weather, among rocks and thorns, with no dry wood to make a fire, it's much harder. The true practice of Guru devotion is the cultivation of undiminishing fervent faithfulness. This is the resting ground where relief from the bardo is sought. Terrifying sounds are nothing but 1,000 roaring dragons. Instantly as he said this, she saw the nature of her projections on the place. And the realization arose in her mind. And so they journeyed together from there to Marathaka. And there they practiced the Tsalung practice involving the movements of the channels. This is where, in union, tumo is used to bring the fire upwards, melting the tigli downwards. The tumo, the fire of desire, burns upwards from the uterus. The white substance, the clear white substance that bathes the brain, drips downwards from the head. They join at the heart, consolidate, and then flow outward suddenly through all the channels, extending them to infinity throughout all 9 dimensions. This reveals the essential nature of reality as it is. You see, you perceive the world through your energy channels. It is the energy channels that come out of your skin all around you, especially strong in the palms of the hands, that perceive touch. It is the energy channels that extend from your ear element outward around you that perceive the vibration of sound, that vibrate with sound, transmitting that into where the sound is interpreted. It is the energy channels most powerful that extend from your heart out through the eyes, shaped like the horn of a cow, small here, getting bigger as they expand, that allow you to see and interpret the world around you. When you are able to cease interpreting and simply allow the display of your own karma to exhaust itself, while keeping the channels of your senses extended, they relax, unfurl, and open out to infinity. This can be done either by relaxing into it or by specific Salung practices which cause it to occur. It is unlike an ordinary orgasm. Much more total and extending through the 4 times and the 3 realms. So this practice they did. Hayagriva, in union with Vajravarahi, the cool white light of the moon with the blazing fire of the sun. In the perfectly pure mandala of primordial wisdom, ordinary elements were transcended, leaving one impervious to solid matter. The Dharma practices are vastly powerful, and the results are beyond compare. After that, they began traveling, sometimes together, more often separate, to tame sentient beings. Kotala was the next place. He went there and spoke to the people there. How do you intend to alleviate the suffering of poverty-stricken ones, the ones who are weak and helpless? He said to the wealthy. How much have you recognized the laws of cause and effect? No, hang on, I made a mistake. He went to some places, she went to Katala. She's traveling on her own now. They have accomplished the goal of their consort practice. Look, a consort is not a wife. By no means that. Consort practice is a practice one does. It's not a lifestyle. Wife is a lifestyle. Yes, we call our wives our consorts. But this is a respectful euphemism, not usually a reality. Usually the consorts, once they have accomplished such a practice, there is no reason to remain physically together. It is no longer needed. Oh, there may be fondness and friendship, but the work of enlightening sentient beings throughout the three realms is much more important. So she goes to Katala and teaches. They give her a throne. Oh no, I was right the first time. They both go to Katala. They give him a throne and she is seated at his side. Many people are saying, you've got a girlfriend, you can't be a real Dharma teacher. Dharma teachers are supposed to be celibate. What are you doing? And she answers, it is difficult for me to think childishly as you do with so many preconceptions. As a Dakini of the Vajra family who has accomplished the state of immortality, no matter how excellent the situation may be, in any kingdom there's still going to be those trapped in worldly entanglements. The lotus-born guru is like a turquoise dragon who remains in space as the sovereign of the four elements. With full confidence he knows the nature of all speech to be like an echo. He is impartial towards good and bad. Fully confident he sees that all conflicting concepts are the real opposition. Do you see that? Your thoughts, your belief systems, and your grasping at those is what's holding you back. Let go. Like the element of the wind, never intimidated by obstructions. Fully confident she is never weakened by wrong views. They did not accept Guru Rinpoche there. So he and Mandarava decided to head up to a high mountain, where they'd been headed anyway, to a cave that was supposed to be very famous, and send emanations down to place everyone on the path. They went up there, and they were attacked by the townspeople. Mandarava transformed herself into a 9-headed, wrathful Dakini, holding weapons of a lasso of human entrails, her 2 feet placed on the peaks of 2 mountains, roaring flames everywhere, proclaiming herself as the embodiment of the Buddha, stating that she would devour the enemies of the doctrine. This pissed the king off. He ordered them to drop bombs, and war was waged upon them. Mandarava emanated as Siamuka, the lion-headed Dakini, Akasamarasha Sadarasamaria, and as such caused the soldiers to faint, the bombs to disperse. Arrows were fired at them, which were transformed into a rain of flowers. They said after that, "Let us put an end to this by making a competition. Whoever wins will take charge of the kingdom." Then 9 great hailstones descended from the mountain to the right and left. The Vajraman master Guru Rinpoche flashed a threatening mantra, and the hailstorm descended and killed all the heretics. Then the Dakini restored the mountains to their original form. All heretics should be eliminated from here. Not even a name will remain, except for the loving kindness and compassion of the second Buddha. What hope is there? Overcome by your confused perceptions, you followed your karma accordingly. The time has come to place this kingdom on the path of the holy Dharma. So then Guru Rinpoche taught the secret mantra to the king and all his ministers. He took the princess there, Ratnashiri, as his consort, and brought disciples into the mandala. Mandarava herself joined him there and taught many, taking consorts as useful. Jealousy doesn't arise at this stage. It's not like you have a consort. As you have one root guru, the one who shows you the nature of mind in such a way that you see it the first time, and you're only a virgin once. So you have one root consort, the one with whom you accomplish the practice the first time. But that doesn't mean you can't teach others. Have other consorts. There is no reason for consorts to be monogamous. Although I am sure some Hris in some stories do manifest in that way, Mandarava and Guru Rinpoche rarely did. Not their character. After that, the 2 of them together went to the charnel grounds known as Kalinga, where the wrathful Dakinis danced. There they turned the wheel of the Dharma for the wrathful Dakinis. He stayed there, turning the wheel of the Dharma for those fierce ones, while Mandarava went to the northern charnel ground, displaying magical powers and terrifying the demons and their assemblies. They threatened her. Back in the time when she was born in Damaru, among those there, do you remember that story from last week or the week before? There were many ministers and kings who never developed faith in her, and those ones were reincarnated here as demons due to their negative manlam. So she's got karma with the demons there. Therefore, she went to complete the karma. For all karma completes. She showed them by singing them this song. In order to cross the great ocean of samsara, you need to carefully rely upon the ship of non-attachment. I, Mandarava, have crossed over this great ocean. May all of you and elementals shall achieve what I have accomplished. To cross over the vast plain of delusion, you must mount the horse of diligence. I, Mandarava, have crossed this great plain. All you elementals will achieve the same. To cross the great river of passions, you must construct the bridge of non-attachment. I, Mandarava, know the great bliss of non-attachment. I shall reveal this to you elementals. From the frightening passageway of suffering and death, unborn companion can grant freedom. I, Mandarava, obtained the state of Nirmanakaya. To escape the prison of suffering and death, know the method which crosses over to the state beyond sorrow. I, Mandarava, have obtained immortality. All the Buddhas of the past have transcended this burning fire pit of negativity. Accomplish Buddhahood. You elementals all are objects of my loving kindness. Your miracles with which you're trying to frighten me are as mighty as a girl's jewelry. At this point, some of them began to beat her, some to rape her, and some to stretch open her secret place. They attacked her body. The Dakini remained in meditative absorption while this was happening without wavering. Guys, that's difficult. Although it is difficult to rape a woman who is sitting in a full lotus in meditative absorption, it is easy to break her concentration and to annoy her sufficiently. This can be a problem. I speak from experience. You really have to get to the point where you can hold, not hold. You can remain relaxed into that which is, in spite of strong stimulation of your 6 sense organs. Even though it may appear to be in ways which you personally, specifically fear due to past experiences. You gotta hold through this. Rinpoche spent a week trying to get me to do that, to hold through that. Nope, I goofed. I wasn't able to do it. I had to go back and do Yidam practice. I couldn't do it with Dzogchen. I could hold that visualization, which is why I tell you that the value of Tantra, together with your Dzogchen practice, because sometimes you can't stay relaxed in the stimulation that's occurring, then you have to have the sense to turn into your Yidam. Here, she was far beyond where I was. She was able to remain in the relaxation of Dzogchen in spite of intense stimulus of her sense organs. She remained in meditative absorption, relaxation without wavering. Then she arose in a blazing, fierce female of wrath. I am consort to the Buddhas of the 3 times. All of you and your attendants are subservient to me. Those of you who could not be tamed through loving kindness, okay, I'll do it this way. And so she overwhelmed the elemental demons. They were unable to escape her command, and light rays from her naked body pierced each one, and they swore and awoke to the path of virtue. She gave each of them a Dharma name. They took refuge, and she blessed them with water and words of honor. She continued to send forth many manifestations, liberating the demons through secret means. And so these demons with whom she had past karmic connection when they were human, all achieved the secret mantra. She had conferred upon them the cycles of accomplishment, the pointing out instructions, Dzogchen, and the supplementary practices, Rushen. She commanded them to pass these entrustments on to future incarnate teachers in the land of Tibet, and predicted that all of the elementals would eventually achieve Buddhahood. Dzogchen is good for demons. Understand that energy is energy. You need to bring to your Dzogchen practice intensity, energy, the fuel of energy. Any energy, without differentiating good energy and bad energy. All of it is fuel for the naked awareness. Coffee time. Then the Guru spoke. They met up again as she returned to the charnel ground, leaving emanations to continue teaching. In the copper-colored land of Camera are many cannibals. Their king is Nang Zakalaling, the Queen Bumhing. It's time for you to go there and tame them. So here's where they really begin separating. She's been trained, he's seen her function as manifestation. Now she can go off and do her job, as he will also go off in different directions and do his. So he sent her to that place, the land of cannibals. And at the moment she got there, Queen Bumhang ate her. Queen Bumhang was fierce, with wrinkly brow, tusks that descended all the way down to her tits, red hair standing straight up. Then, once she had been eaten, the Dakini from within shouted, "Pet!" and the queen's body collapsed and fell apart. Her abdomen split open, and the princess emerged. The people of the kingdom, the cannibals, felt that the girl must be the daughter of the dead queen. However, the king said that since she did not resemble him, She couldn't be his daughter, must be somebody else's daughter, so he wanted her to replace the queen as his queen. And so she did that. She took the king cannibal as a consort. And so the two of them, he in training by her, ordered the people to practice Dharma. That didn't work. People don't always do what you tell them. So Mandarava manifested herself as the wrathful lion-headed Dakini again. Akasamaraja sadara samariyape. While the king appeared as the wrathful Heruka, uttering hum, paralyzing the cannibals with fear. Then the Heruka, the two of them, began slaying the cannibals one by one, until the rest promised to accomplish whatever was asked of them. Fiercely Dharma was taught there, with rewards and punishments, for it was all they understood. She did bestow empowerments there like a ripening river, and for 3 years she turned the wheel of the Dharma as the consort of the king, and every single inhabitant achieved body of light, and the land of the cannibals was emptied to its depth. Moreover, she traveled on. Now, Guru Rinpoche's stories are going on simultaneously. He's in other places, going here, going there, and this is her stories. So it's not like she became the queen of Sahor and married him and they lived happily ever after. That's not how consort practice works. Pale shadow. They met up in the 8 major and minor charnel grounds of North India. He turned the Dharma wheel for the wrathful Dakini's gods and cannibals. Mandarava displayed 8 great miraculous deeds. In the charnel ground of wrathful sounds, she set forth 5 manifestations, with nectar flowing from the palms of her hands. Forming a lake seated upon a lotus she was, each manifestation surrounded by hosts of manifestation, until there were as many Mandaravas as there are atoms in the universe. This filled the wrathful Dakinis with faith. The accomplishment of the samadhi of non-conceptual awareness. And so she taught them this. In the space of original purity, the azure firmament of the Dharmakaya opens to reveal the Sampogakaya of rainbow clouds, encompassing all directions. The great rain of the Nirmanakaya, which tames in whatever way is deemed necessary, descends upon the unborn earth of the unobstructed garden of disciples. The boundless emanation of the 5 primordial wisdoms ripens the stainless fruit of the essence of the vehicles. The result is all-pervasive as space. It is the uncompounded state of the great exaltation by the blessing of the Lord Guru Padmasambhava Vodhyana, who is unrivaled through the 3 times I have had the good fortune to obtain this uncontaminated, sublime embodiment. Although phenomenal existence is based on interdependence, this Dakini represents the pure perception of existence. You wrathful mamos represent the impure, wrathful expression in the world of the same thing. Primordially, all of you are without confusion in your essential nature of original purity, simply because of your temporary obscurations. You have created your present state of self-grasping and the suffering that accompanies it. You must come to recognize that your suffering is derived only from your own confusion. Do you? Do you see that? Your suffering arises from your own confusion about what is real. And so you make up stories to yourself. And you tell them to yourself, and then you believe in them, and then you feel bad about them. You know you don't have to do that. Do not be confused. Your own mind's nature is Buddha. Do not disparage because of this confusion. Do not spread the confusion of negativity. Do not grasp with compulsive attachment at the illusory play of appearance. Do not hold to objects of conceptual mind as true. Your damn stories, that is. This habitual cycle of dualistic grasping must not be maintained. Let go. Allow it to collapse. O wrathful mamos, accomplish the non-dual state of the five certainties, which is inherently pure primordial wisdom, self-originating awareness. Your emotions, the five categories of emotion, fear and anger, avarice, insufficiency, poverty feelings, lust, pointed, fretful love, competition and jealousy, and sludgy depression. These five categories of feeling are the five wisdoms when you stop embroidering them with stories and let go without grasping or shoving at your emotions. Leave them be. Stripped naked of the story, naked even of the name of the feeling. The pure energy of Dzogchen, the vitality of the universe arises as the five wisdoms, the pattern of the five Dhyani Buddhas. More on this tomorrow when we get to Flight of the Garuda. What she said, take it to heart. You're no other than the mamos. You have the same problem. You believe your own shit, covering yourself with it, hiding behind it because you're afraid to stand naked in the winds of vitality. Relax. There's nothing here to harm you except your own delusions. And so she manifested in 8 different charnel grounds in different ways, giving teachings to the powerful ones, to the demons, to the Dakinis. After this, she rejoined the Guru to tell him and to share stories together of what they had seen, knowing that these were stories, enjoying them nonetheless. You don't have to stop telling stories. You just have to stop believing in them. Stories can be fun. Once upon a time, in a galaxy long, long ago, far, far away, we all like movies. There's nothing inherently wrong with stories. Where the problem arises is when you think they're real. Next, she goes to Mount Kailash, where she manifests as the Dakini Umadevi and takes as consort the keeper of the mountain, Mahadevi. She bound him to oath and gave him 108 treasures, scriptures to save for later. She then headed off to Nepal, where she meditated in mountain caves and encountered a number of the Nepalese people. In particular, there was a young Nepalese woman there who she noticed and to whom she said, "In 3 years' time, you, woman, will die. You will be reborn as the queen of the king of Nepal, named Shakya Devi. You will meet the great Guru Padmasambhava and become a suitable vessel to receive the teachings on the secret mantra. You will be his consort, and you will then conceal many profound treasure texts to benefit the red-faced people of the land of Tibet." Other people in Nepal, however, said, "Perhaps you've really come here just looking for a husband, and we're not sure we believe you." Once again, she performed miracles, standing forth and stating claim to full wisdom Dakini energy. She spoke, "Understand that the habitual propensities of karma are like a long-term prison sentence. If one heedlessly falls into such a situation, the chances for liberation are lost." In the Tsang charnel grounds, she bound the malevolent spirits under an oath to protect Dharma. She went among cannibals, many of whom wanted to marry her. As she spoke, "Any wife of you malevolent flesh-eaters smelling meat on your breath would have to be an elemental from the sinister charnel grounds." Of course, this pissed him off. They tried to beat her. They threatened to cut off her arms and legs. If she did not have sex with them, they grabbed her. She let that go on for a time, and then she manifested as a fierce, wrathful Dakini, terrifying them. So they promised to do whatever she asked. She set them to vegetarianism, to cease killing, and they entered upon the path of the Dharma, and all achieved liberation. Going about and going about to the different charnel grounds, taming fierce demons and cannibals. At this time, she passed on to the great stupa known as Subukara Shikara, where Guru Rinpoche was residing, and she took comfort in his presence and enjoyed it. They traveled together to the land of Odhyana, where he was from. There she took on the face of a cat and manifested herself as a catwoman. Many were filled with faith and devotion, but not all of them. One minister sentenced them to be burned at the stake without telling the king. There was a princess there, Prabhadara, who felt great jealousy towards Mandarava for her beauty, for her fur, for her status of having befriended the great teacher. She started the rumor that he'd found a beggar girl and brought her home with him. Hence the sentence. However, it didn't work. They do have a bad habit when they're together of getting burned at the stake. Once again, fire didn't burn them. Turned the fire into a lake. On seeing this, the one who had ordered the burning fell dead. And the king, in his faith again in his adopted son, invited them to the palace to teach. Then Guru Rinpoche took Prabhadara as his consort, the jealous one, and trained it out of her, bestowing upon her the supreme secret empowerment of union. Mandarava gathered together the females and taught them the tantras. They were all gradually liberated. The king himself, Indrabhuti, and 500 of his retinue attained full rainbow body. In the end, they all did, and Odhyana was emptied to its depths. She went to Shambhala next. She said to them, "The time has come for me to dissolve into the stainless space of absolute reality. But that is not an ending, for I shall send forth once again countless manifestations. However, due to pleading, they asked her to remain for 15 years. Please teach us everything without holding back." And she agreed. "I will teach you Dharma if you are a suitable vessel." She was given a palace and turned the wheel of the secret mantra until the king and all were liberated. Then she traveled to the southern continent of Shambhala, where she remained near the gate. People took her. She remained near the gate. She noticed many beings being punished and harmed by the law. She picked up a human executed corpse, and as she flew off into space, it regained its color and began to breathe and came back to life. This miracle allowed those who witnessed it to enter the path of the Dharma. In the southern continent, she saw battle going on. She chanted the syllables Hong Pet and caused all the dead soldiers to transform into rainbow body in that instant. All the weapons turned into flowers. So the conflict naturally came to an end. For 3 years, she remained there and turned the wheel of the Dharma. In another area, people had leprosy in the southwest. She peed on them, anointed them with her urine, and they were instantly cured. Henceforth, she was known as the Dakini who liberates from disease. She's only got 1 foot in this reality at this point. She was going to dissipate for a time, but was requested to remain, and did, but it's different, that kind of remaining. It's not quite, well, it's certainly not being here like solid like this. The miracles are effortless and without volition. One doesn't do them, they happen, they occur as a result of the group karma of those around. But there really isn't much of anyone left in there. Upon reaching the city of Katina, everyone spoke badly of her, saying a youthful girl should be accompanied by a husband. It was against their custom for a woman to wander about alone. She solved that one by sending forth many manifestations and having sex with everyone there. Bestowing the secret empowerment, she liberated them all through sudden solemn practice into rainbow body. She placed the prince and all the male inhabitants of the kingdom on the path to liberation through the sole method of having sex with them. In addition, all females onto the Dharma path. From there to the northwest continent, where she turned the Dharma wheel, and the northern continent, where they asked her to be queen to the king. I have no time to be queen while traveling the path of the Dharma, she said. Of course, this pissed off the king. Tried to burn her at the stake again, but a cleansing rain descended. And so she arose again in a large lotus in the middle of a lake, Mandarava sitting and blazing with light. Her ropes and chains transformed into her jewel ornaments. There's a symbol in that. Don't try to get rid of your own chains. Transform them into your jewel ornaments. Don't fight the manifestation that thinks it's you. Leave it be as it is, utterly perfect as it always has been. All the ministers had great shame and remorse and requested the profound Dharma teachings. She turned the wheel of the Dharma for everyone, and for 5 years they practiced. Many attained rainbow body. Then she went off to Singala to join the guru who was residing there. Bowing to the great Vajra master, her teacher, she sang, "May we never be separated in this and all future lifetimes. Show me the way and support me from behind. Free from illness as the cause of ordinary death, I remain liberated as luminous clear light. Still until the activities of the Buddhas become empty, may my efforts to benefit sentient beings remain unceasing." And he sang to her, "O woman made manifest, free from compounded conditions, as the supreme consort of the Buddha Amitabha. No one is capable of determining the measure or limit of your ability. It is impossible for anyone to remain permanently in this ordinary world nonetheless. So she sang out to the people, "Whatever doubts you may have, what questions you have, ask me now, because the time is nearly at an end." Many came forward and requested her, and so she taught, before passing on to the realm of truth. No one in this world is permanent, no manifestation is permanent. Nonetheless, leaving is not permanent either. The last Mandarava was seen was as a swirl of rainbow lights, as Mandarava. But a few hundred years later, born to a Brahmin family, Niguma, Naropa's sister. The two of them studied Dharma, but they studied it differently. Naropa went to be a scholar and was a bit of a prig, being male and having all the benefits. Niguma, not bothered by all those accoutrements, went off to a charnel ground and got the pith instructions. And so there she lived. It took Tilopa forever to break through Naropa. Niguma, not so much of a problem. She was still there, I think, in the time of Marpa, where he visited her and got teachings, as did many other siddhas. She is less known, for she had no interest in fame, no university degrees, which was for men only in those days, and therefore was not hindered in either her realizations or her teaching. She attained them early and lived findably in charnel grounds to those who had the karma to receive her teachings. I will close with her teaching. But this is not the end of the story. Mandarava's around. Wisdom Dakini, nature is manifest throughout the 10 directions, the 9 dimensions, the 3 realms, and the 4 times. Like the great roar of the dragon that permeates both samsara and nirvana. How can you possibly miss it? Naguma's teachings, pure Dzogchen. You don't have to do anything with your mind. Just let it naturally rest in its essential nature. your own mind, unagitated is reality. Meditate on this without distraction or concentration. Know the truth beyond all opposites. Thoughts are like the bubbles that form and dissolve in clear water. Thoughts are not distinctly other from the absolute reality. So relax. There is no need to be critical of whatever is going on. Whatsoever arises, whatsoever occurs, simply don't cling to it. Don't grab. Don't grasp. Let it go. Immediately let it go. What you see, hear, and touch, your own mind, there is nothing other than mind. There is no mind. Mind transcends birth and death. The essence of mind is pure consciousness that never leaves reality. Even though it experiences the things of the senses, in the equanimity of the absolute, there is nothing to renounce or attain. Niguma. And so this concludes the stories of Mandarava. I hope you enjoyed them. Are there questions?
Oh, there are.
Give me a few.
To start, a number of people were really taken by the story of the lion-headed Dakini, the Simamuka. Is that a mantra that you can give the lung for, teach? That's one of the questions.
No, you really need a wong to practice that. I did give you the lung as part of the teaching. I don't really recommend you practice it. Without getting the wong. But it may be that someone is giving that around somewhere. Have a look. See, Google Wong's Siamuka lion-headed Dakini on the internet and see if anybody planning to give one comes up. Or you can try and see if anyone's taped one. I don't know if Wongs transmit that way. I think they do to some people whose awareness is mature enough that they can reach and catch across time and space, but not necessarily for all people.
What is turning the wheel of the Dharma? It's a phrase that's come up several times during today's teaching.
It's called teaching. What I'm doing. I'm turning the wheel of the Dharma. Next. That was an easy.
Yes.
Thank you for the easies.
Okay. I have a less easy question. Something you mentioned during the teaching had to do with this, you talked about a state of emotional sludginess.
Mm-hmm.
Something we've talked about, the sort of spiritual or psychic exhaustion that many are feeling today. So what Mandarava-related practices are good for combating this feeling?
Not combating that feeling. Don't fight it. Shoving and grasping feed it power. That sludginess, which I am also experiencing, leave it be. If you do not fight it, if you do not worry about the dust ponies under your bed, or whatever else you haven't gotten around to, but just leave it be and relax into it. You can allow it to open up into its natural state of infinite spaciousness in which everything dances. It is the space element. Just as wish-fulfilling jewel of the southern direction is the earth element. Fire of passion and lust. Wind of fear and anger running through your channels. Water of competition and jealousy. Sometimes those two get reversed in some mandalas. In the center is the element of space, the vast openness of open awareness, Dharmakaya, nature of mind, unobscured, unobstructed. So, as we are all feeling sludgy exhaustion, don't fight it. Allow yourself to feel it. Don't grab it. Don't try to keep it. Don't say, oh, it's a good thing. Don't say, oh, it's a bad thing. Leave it be. Allow it to open into spaciousness. Your round tuits won't kill anybody. Relax. Leave be. Next.
What is meant by the practice of Mandarava? Is it reciting the text from last week, or is it practicing her Dzogchen instructions?
There are many practices of Mandarava, not just one. There are tantric sadhanas taught by Norbu Rinpoche, very beautiful, but much more involved in depth than I feel inclined to teach here, and should go with a Wong, because they're full-on tantric sadhanas. There are the recitation of either last week's long biographical prayer or this week's shorter, all Mother Dakini prayer, or there are the following of her instructions and her teachings in both Tantra and Dzogchen. One does not do all of these. Oh, and Akon Rinpoche out in the east, Massachusetts, Maine, somewhere like that, has a really lovely sadhana also. Shorter and simpler than Guru Rinpoche's. I just couldn't find a lung on it to give it to you. So, any of these practices, pick one. Either follow her Dzogchen teachings, do her sadhana, long one, short one, middling one, or recite her prayers as it pleases you. Don't try to do them all. And another.
What was Mandarava practicing in the lower cave near the lake in Salpema?
Okay, the lake wasn't there then.
No,
so it was near a pasture.
In that location.
I don't know. Dundro, maybe?
Can you explain more about negative manlams and what those are?
I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I'm terrible. Everybody hates me. Everything's wrong. They're out to get me. I'm going to get them back. Those are negative manlams when you repeat them frequently. Words have power. When you say negative things of intent, I will get that guy. Motherfucker, I hope he has a crash, the guy who just cut me off. Things like that. Those are negative manlam. They have results. Unfortunately, not so much to whoever you're cursing at, but to the curser. All those negative things you say to yourself about yourself, how you're not good enough, that's a negative manlam. It's called casting bad spells on yourself. Don't do it. It hurts. It's like telling you, don't stick your hand in the fire. It's going to burn you. When you say, oh, I suffer from anxiety, I can't do this. I suffer from anxiety, I can't do that. I suffer from anxiety. This is going to increase your anxiety. Oh, I am sickly. Guess what that's going to increase? Do not repeat negative manlam, wish path, against yourself or others. Mostly we do it against ourselves here in the West. Most Tibetans do it against others. Still has the same kind of negative effect on the utterer. That doesn't mean you can't tell your doctor where it hurts. It's repeating to yourself, I'm always sick, I'm always sick, God damn it, I'm always sick. What do you think that's going to do? Make you sick. You may be sick anyway, but repeating it to yourself isn't going to make it better. It can only make it worse. Please do not understand this to be saying it's your fault if you're sick. Someone long ago and far away, someone who wasn't you, Joe, Susan, Ellen, someone else with a different personality did those things. But as time went on and they changed and grew and were born and died and born again, they ended up as you with no memory of the previous oops. And it wasn't even you, as you know yourself, who did those. So no blame here. Accept responsibility for your future, but do not carry blame for your past. Blame is not the same as, say, when we do the practice of Vajrasattva with recapitulation, where we recognize the errors we've made in the past and choose to change them. That's not blame. Even if we remember past lives and recognize stupid shit we pulled when we were a soldier. I drowned in a mud puddle once. I was so fucking drunk. That was dumb. Got me born as a bug, too. And it wasn't the bug's fault. Do you see? It's not blame. However, I no longer drink that much that I can't walk or fish myself out of a mud puddle. I occasionally drink enough to fall in a mud puddle, but not enough to stay there. Yeah, down in Brazil, I'm rather famous for going splat and coming in after having taken a walk outside at a party and completely covered with black mud head to toe. What the fuck? It was a good party. Next question.
Is there a manifestation of Mandarava in our time?
Probably. Next question.
Is there a holy tune for the prayer of Mandarava that you gave last week and the one you read today?
Not that I know. Either make one up or wander around on YouTube to see if you can find one done by a Tibetan singer. I am tone deaf. I have many strong points. But singing on key has never been one of them in this life. So you all just have to put up with what I sound like when I do stuff. And if you want it pretty, see if you can find a copy on YouTube done by someone who actually is a professional singer. Next.
I have one.
And let's see, maybe one last one or two last ones you choose?
Oh, yes. The prayer you read today, is it more effective to read it in Tibetan, or is that fine in English?
I have always preferred to read it in Tibetan. The depth of meaning in Tibetan is greater than in English. You have to translate half the words into an entire paragraph. And the Tibetan doesn't even have words. Half the phrases into an entire paragraph to get, or even a whole page to get equivalent depth of meaning. So for poetry, I like it in the original. So I prefer in Tibetan. I think it has deeper meaning. You will recognize some of the words and know some of the deep meaning of some of them as you do it. And should you find a word that interests you, you can always look it up and see the different levels of meaning in those syllables, which is interesting for those of you with a more scholarly bent. I just don't like the way it sounds in English. And I think there is power in the Tibetan words, which we have not yet made in the English words. So you can either bushwhack a trail through the universal unconscious made of these words, or you can take the nice, already bushwhacked and cleared path in the Tibetan words. My preference is Tibetan. You may form your own opinion on this if you wish. And one more, and then I'm going to call it.
Okay. How is the lion-faced Dakini related to the 5 wisdom Dakinis?
The 5 wisdom Dakinis are the female aspects of the Dhyani Buddhas. The lion-faced Dakini is a protector. And there's your answer. That was so short, I'll take one more.
You had mentioned during your reading today, what does it mean that Mandarava is teaching the secret mantra?
Consort practice. Yidam practice with Tsalung, whether physical living consort or visualized as the consort of your Yidam, these are the secret practices. In general, the higher tantras, parts of Yogatara, Anuttara Tantra, and Mahanuttara Tantra are considered very secret, and you must have the initiation. Kriya Tantra is less secret, and the lung will do, although the initiations are nice. And I think that's it for today, unless there's anything pressing.
Well, the one reminder we have for people who will also be joining us tomorrow for the flight of the Garuda, we just want to remind you that the clocks in America will be changing back 1 hour this evening. So be sure to double check your clock tomorrow morning and Facebook to make sure you catch the broadcast at the correct time.
Yes, and if you're not in America, the time will be changing to
savings. It's going to daylight savings time.
Does that mean it's an hour earlier or later?
We fall back, so it goes earlier.
Earlier. So you will actually look at what would usually I teach at 11, but it will be at
10.
11 o'clock, which would have been 10 o'clock today. So if you're in Europe or somewhere that doesn't do daylight savings, come an hour earlier than you're used to. I hope that's right.
Yeah.
Fall ahead, spring ahead, fall back.
Spring forward, fall back is the same.
And let's see, for you Americans, for the election, where I'm going to be doing some very powerful ceremony on Tuesday night. Monday night and Tuesday morning, the night of the 2nd and the morning of the 3rd. 6 p.m. on the 2nd and 11 a.m. on the 3rd, which is election day. I'm going to be doing some very specific ceremonial work for which you're all invited to join me. It will be over this Facebook, YouTube open. For good decision and good government. Because, boy, we need it. So please join me and bring your Dorji and bell. We can do this together. There'll be lung for the ceremonies, and for the rest of it, you can participate. We'll work together. But let's try to tip this towards something which does not harm and kill so many people. I'm also going to invite the mamos and other thingies. So remember, I'll be on daylight savings time, so when I say 6, it will mean 5 to those of you who do not change clocks. Get used to an hour earlier. And that will be 6 p.m. on my time on the 2nd in the evening before the election begins, to set it up, and then 11 a.m. during the actual time of voting to give open-minded, open-heartedness what help we can, so that perhaps some turning away from the sori, the closed-minded, narrow-mindedness that has become endemic, can occur. Ge wandi Chi chi sala go pashu. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free.